this is a video I've been intending to make for a very long time now, honestly. I just never quite knew how to format it, and I still don't, to be honest. But I figured just splurging my thoughts at the screen would be better than nothing, and I could maybe make a series on it going to a bit more specifics on certain setups. But it's about account building. So I often get asked within my alliance for advice about what to do with certain commanders or refinement choices or gear choices, talents, I mean you name it, just everything in terms of account building. And obviously it's a very fundamental part of the game, right? How should I build my account and how should I make the most out of it? And with the game being as it is, it's a very pay to win game. There's often quite a lot of defeatism, I'd say, in regards to people's thoughts and people's decision making, which is quite understandable, but I do think it is true nonetheless that every account, no matter how much you spend, can be effective in PvP in this game. You just have to build correctly for your account and also for your situation, because it isn't a universal rule. A free-to-play account on K300 will not be optimal to be built the same as a free-to-play account will be in ATD, where you're in max account PvP scenarios. But you can still contribute to both. 100% you can contribute to both. So there are a few factors that you need to be self-aware of. Is what is your situation, both in terms of your spending level and the basis you have to build from with your account as it is, your alliance, your kingdom, the situations you find yourself in, your priorities in the game even, like how much you put emphasis on events versus live world PvP and invading and the like such as that. There are definitely things you can do either way to go, or at least start going down the right path. So as an example, I'll just use probably the most common example, and that is a free-to-play player, right? So when talking to free-to-play players, at least in my experience, I noticed there's quite a lot of defeatism in terms of their thoughts towards PvP situations. So they'll look at me, for example, and say, I can never compete with you. And to an extent, that is true, but it depends on your interpretation, right? Because you can never compete with me, but how? What are we competing in? Like rally leading on a great city? Yeah, of course not. But there are things you can do outside of that, because that's not all that PvP is, right? So, as an example, if someone sees me like this, like 850 mil power, all gold Kingsguard, over 600 mil merit, no one accepts like max accounts, and even then, they're probably gonna wait for cues like my lord being out or me blanking or something like that. I just won't be soloed at all. Whereas if you're 400 mil, for example, you will view yourself, compared to me at least, as weak. And yeah, that's undeniable, of course. But also, in my mind, I will view you as weak. And you can turn that fact into a strength, because I won't be able to be soloed ever. Except from accounts which would do damage to anyone in this game. Whereas you can be soloed by accounts like me. And I'm not a max account whatsoever, and you could very realistically, if you build for it correctly, and play it correctly, capture my lord by baiting me to attack you. Whereas I would not have the opportunity to do that to you, because you would under no circumstances ever attack me. So yes, you can't compete with me, but you can do things which I also can't. Sure, they might not be as sexy, it might not be what you want, but we know the imbalances in this game. That is just the reality of it. But if you're still playing at this point, you must at least be numb to it or accepting of it, and I'd hope at least you could see the point I'm getting at. where you can turn that into a strength. You have to know the ceiling and the limits of what your account is capable of, and not try to exceed them, and then play within those limits as best as you possibly can. And if you do that, you can have a lot of success no matter who you are. And yes, you may have to tailor your situation around your account to an extent if you prefer certain types of gameplay, but you can still be consistently effective in all forms of gameplay. So if you're a free-to-play player, what are your limits? Right, you won't be able to tank rallies from strong mid-spender or high-spender rally leaders whatsoever with any success. And if you do, you'll be really baiting your alliance members, which, in terms of an alliance itself, it won't be healthy. So for free-to-play, I would very much recommend to be able to blank your castle to 0 troops. Alternatively, you could go a trap route where you mass build troops and keep your research really, really low. But it is a very limiting playstyle if you do that, and it will have its downsides. And to an extent, you can be a trap whilst being a blank castle. I've seen a lot of people play that to a lot of success. Like, you don't need 12 million troops to be a trap. If you're like 350 mil and you have 6 mil tier 4s and then 1 mil tier 3s on the front, you will be able to be attacked by a lot more middling players and capture their lords all the time. There is huge strength in appearing weak in this game, and a lot of that you have to make a snap second decision on, and the first thing your attention will go to will be the power number. So if you can keep that power number low, it will probably really help you in PvP scenarios, because as I've said before, as a free-to-play player, your offensive capabilities will be fairly limited. It will mostly be joining rallies of higher spending players and solo attacking players even smaller than you. So at that pay level, you really want to be looking at making defending a strength for you, I feel like. And the lower your power for that, the better. Just because it opens the door to being attacked by weaker players. Like a 500 mil castle won't attack a 500 mil castle. They might, but they really, really shouldn't. But a 500 mil castle very well may attack a 350 mil castle, especially if they see them already attacking or something like that. So for all free-to-play accounts looking to PvP, I would really recommend keeping research power down. That will probably just mean unlocking tier 4s and then extra badge slots at the end here with Badge Master. But then after that, I'd go easy on it. So I'd get all the way up to Chivalry 2 at max at least. Maybe Pack 5 if you want to do the 5s. But it will be extra power. You can do 4s consistently in any alliance in the game. It isn't totally necessary to do 5s. Past that, I might just chill out. You probably want these at 10. And probably want 6th March and training speed at 10. Maybe a few extra formations, but then you can stop there. Honestly, you don't need more researchers than that. All the way down to here, the reductions, the army 2s, the further researchers down here. It is huge research bloat, which will act against your priorities, really, if you want to be PvPing, because keeping that power number down is the greatest strength you realistically have. So that will be universal no matter your situation. Then, in terms of troop building, that will be very specific on your situation. So if you're an ATD, for example, and you're finding yourself in situations against max accounts that can solo you. Even if you have 10 mil troops, you will not be able to tank solos from them, which means pretty much the only way you can participate in combat will be preemptively blanking and joining other max account rallies probably, which means you'll really want to keep your troops down. So I'd probably look to build here to be able to blank in one march, or at least one external march, which means shelter, fake rally, and then your one march that leaves your castle. If you're a free-to-play player, your shelter, I assume, will be pretty small because of that, maybe like 400, 500k, I'm not sure on the specific number. I'd always recommend building army size and refinement no matter what. So with a 50% scroll, you could maybe get to like 2.4, 2.5 mil troops and be able to pure blank your castle in that one march. And yes, those are very low troop numbers, but this is the most unideal situation possible. Because yes, it will be low, but if you get hit by max accounts of more, you will just die. So the alternative is just build more for events and whatnot, but you will never be able to leave bubble unless you're really risking it. Like, you can have bubbles tagging around of you and just blank a bit more on them. Like, you can exit your bubble with a blanking march, so you can under a bubble, shelter, fake rally, and then reinforce someone next to you and then send your rally, and then you can probably run like 1 mil each tier 4 and then 500k in your front, maybe like 100k on your second and third lines as tier 3s. That is a very nice position to sit at, but the blanking process will be a bit slower and riskier because of that. That's a very niche scenario though. So most people will be playing in alliances where the biggest threat will be mid-spenders. So even if you match into Reese in like KVK or something, pretty much no one in our alliance, on K21 at least, will just be able to brute force solo you if you're built properly and you have your lord at home. So knowing that fact, you can build around that. In my personal experience, if I hit a castle with, say, even as little as like 4 to 5 million tier 4s, and it's properly set up, I will lose my lord on that, honestly. If they have their lord at home and maybe they counter me decently well, I won't be able to just randomly solo that and have success against it. So you can play a bit above those easily blankable numbers. Knowing that, you can quite easily run, say, 1.5 mil of each tier 4, and then like 500k tier 3 on your front, and 200k on your second and third lines, and then you can try and bait solos from accounts like me. You can send like one troop out with your little dragon, try and pretend like your lord's out, and then I'll speed and hit you, and you'll cap my lord. It's that simple, really. And you can do that at fairly low power numbers. I was going to show an example in my alliance, but I probably shouldn't show someone who's built to trap lords like that. But they're out there. I think he's below like 400 mil, the guy I'm thinking of, and he very consistently captures people's lords every single KVK, everywhere he goes to invade, because he looks weak, but he has a lot of tier 4s and very respectable stats. So fighting in and around mid-spenders, I feel like that's about the sweet spot. Playing around like 5 to 5.5 mil troops, heavy tier 4 bias if possible, just because it's better for defending, and that is your main strength. You can still have the tier 3 on the front to tank losses and solo attack with, you'll just have to rebuild them fairly often, but that's zero castle life. And then if you get rallied, you can blank in like 4 marches or something, and you can pick and choose your battles whenever you want, being built like that. And you can have a lot of fun in PvP, you can go invading with that, your power will be kept down, and you can really, really contribute. If you go above those troop numbers, you'll find yourself in situations where you'll just stay under bubble because you're like, oh fuck, if I get blockaded, I'm screwed because I can't blank, I can't tank rallies. I'll still lose solos, but I can't blank preemptively to not get soloed. So you really, really limit your options if you go too high in terms of troop numbers, in my opinion. You can go the trap option, where you build like tier 1s, tier 2s. But it's just a very restricted playstyle. You're such a one-trick pony. You'll cap one guy's lord, and then he'll go, don't solo this dude because he's a trap, he has 12 mil troops, and then you're done. And he'll save the report, you'll change your name because you think you're smart, and he'll just track your name change through the save mails, because changing names here, it will just be tracked forever. So there's like God of War Love, they go all the way down, there's Lord Savo, now Hail to the King. You can't hide through name changes, like you might be able to, but if they're smart, it won't matter. You'll trap one guy and that's it. That's you done with that people you're PvPing against. You just won't be able to do anything else. And there are such limited opportunities in PvP, I really don't think limiting your options in terms of what you can actually do is a smart thing to do, personally at least. So you have your troops built out. After that, it's stats, right? So if you're free to play, you're gonna struggle playing across 3 lines very successfully. Potentially, at least. I would honestly still probably recommend it to an extent, because like I said, defending is your strength. So if we look at my refinement, for example, I am obviously a Cav Lord. I send Cav at everyone. Don't send Spear at me, I can't deal with it. I would totally destroy my castle. Please don't send spears. If here I was a free-to-play account, I'd get rid of the rally size, obviously. I'd probably get rid of the reduction, because reduction is best when you're attacking at a numbers disadvantage, which is normally rallying or soloing other people's castles. If you're free-to-play, your strength will be in defending and having more numbers yourself, so you'll want attacks on your own side. So you could have something like army size, cav attack, inf attack, total attack, and you just run inf cav into people. But if you really all in on that, and you don't have good badges, you don't have good total commanders or anything like that, and you have, say, like 300% spear attack, if someone runs cav front into you, you will be so useless, honestly, and that will just negate what your strength is immediately. So if I was running a free-to-play account like this, I would probably in Refinement still go army size, maybe not all in on army size, honestly, because it isn't as effective if you're not doing a lot of offensive PvP actions. Maybe you could have it on like 5 or 6 slots rather than 8. It still is the best event refinement stat though, so I probably would have 8. I'm an absolute army size fetch sis though. But after that, total attack will be the highest value stat you can get if you can get that on every slot, and then you'll have 16 slots left across the other stats to balance, and you could still have that imp cav bias. You could run like 6 imp attacks, 6 cav attacks, but then you could also have the 4 spear attacks too. Or, you know, even like 7, 7, 2. I just don't think having none at all is probably that smart, because it really will limit your effectiveness at being able to tank attacks, especially if someone hits you and it doesn't quite go your way and then they adapt. Like if you're really heavy on imp spear and you just have no cav attack at all, if they send imp cav into you or mono imp and you can't get through their front line, you will just get yourself zeroed. you need to be able to kill them. Like the goal will be to capture lords. And to do that, you need to do damage. You can't just tank. So I would look to make that my priority, is buff up my own attacks as much as possible, and then play around trying to get attacked, which will probably consist of a lot of one troop and dragon bait attacks. Attack someone like that and just send, and then swap your curfew to a total attack when you get being attacked notification, swap it immediately back and teleport out, maybe name change. You could maybe full blank your castle to 0 troops, get attacked at 0 troops, and then if you do a really quick unblank, out of shelter, out of your fake rally, recall 1 or 2 reinforcements but speed them back into your castle, and then bam, you've got like 4 more troops defending, and you have your lord at home, and then someone will see you trying to recall and try and hit you in that moment of weakness, but you'll bring all your troops back fast enough that you'll be able to capture their lord there too. If they're a mid-spender at least. If they're, Ortizio or Bezaming or something ridiculous, you will get destroyed. So you will have to pick your battles and just know your limits. But you really can have a lot of success doing that, even as a lower spender. I'd probably look to try and get all 3 lines at around 1000% attack total. So total attack plus the single line attack. When your city is being hit, maybe you can go a bit lower than that if you get reductions on you, but just as a base value, that is a good spot to tank solos and capture lords with, that 5 mil troop range with heavy tier 4 bias. And you should be very mobile at that power level too. You should be able to tour kingdoms, hit a hive, deliberately get reported, not in game, but like on their Discord, and warn their whales, and then get attacked, capture 1 or 2 lords there, and then just bail. And you'll be able to have a lot of fun with that, which isn't something an account like mine can do, because I'm too big to be mobile. No one's gonna solo me. So don't think just because you're free to play, just because you're small, that you can't PvP, because you really can. You just have to go about it in your own way. You can't try and play by the whales game, because that is a losing battle, which you will never ever win. But you can play your own battle, and you can beat them with your game. You just gotta be smart about it.